Hello guys, welcome back to the Quantity Surveying Workshop and to another video. In today's video we are going to be treating how to build up the rates for concrete using hand mix. If you've been following our videos, you know that in the last video I posted that it was concerning building up the rates for concrete when a machinery is being used. So our advice, in order to understand this video better, you need to watch that particular video because it's very elaborate and I explained a lot of things better. So in this video we'll try to be as fast as possible. So I'm going to be posting the link for that particular video on the screen so that you can easily locate it. So like I said, starting the video, this particular video is for building up the rate for concrete work using hand mix. So we're not going to be using any plants to mix the concrete. So without any further ado, let's get into the video. So if you look at our consideration, we have cement per bag is at 8,000 naira. Offloading and stacking for the cement is 15 naira per bag. Sand for 15 tons is 112,500. Granite 15 tons 250,500. The labor for mixing 5,000 naira per day. That's 3 laborers for 4.5 hours per meter cube each. Then labor for placing and tamping, 1 tradesman. You know what a tradesman is? Somebody that's a professional in whatever activity they are doing, like maybe concreting, or a carpenter is a tradesman. So 1 tradesman is at 6,000 naira per day, 3.5 hours per meter cube, and then 2 laborers at 5,000 naira per day at 3.5 hours per meter cube. So these are the information we're going to be using to build up the rate for this bill of quantity extract. So the first thing we're going to be building up our rate for are the materials. The first thing in our material will be cement. So in our mix ratio, we have 1:2:4. So for the cement, the ratio for the cement is 1 meter cube of cement. So we know that 1 meter cube of cement is equal to 28.8 bags. At what's the rate? 8,000 naira per bag. Therefore, the cost for 28.8 bags will now become what? As 28.8 multiplied by the cost for 1 bag, which is 8,000 naira, and that is going to give me 230,400. The next one, we now have to cater for the offloading and stacking for the bags of cement. So offloading and stacking at 15 naira per bag. Would now become 28.8 multiplied by 15 naira, and that is going to give us 1,440 naira. So after doing this, we now have to add these 2 parameters together, and that will give me 231,840. So after getting this, we need to add 5% for waste. just to be on the safe side. So we'll now add 5% stockpile. So 5% of this particular price will give me what? 11,592 naira. That is and when you add the two parameters together, it will give me what? 243,432 naira. So this will be the cost for 1 meter cube of what? Cement. Then the next thing we will now get into would be for the what? Sand. So we know that for the sand we are using what? 15 tons at what? 112,500. So we'll now say sand 15 tons at what? 112,500. So we now need to know what the cost per meter cube of the sand will be. You now have to what? Convert these 15 tons into what? Meter cube. So what this basically means is that we need to find the approximate equivalent of 15 tons of sand to what? Meter cube. So how do we do that? First, we need to know what is the equivalent of 15 tons of sand to what? Volume. We need to know what is the volume of 15 tons of sand in cubic meter. And how do we do that? We do that by what? Dividing the mass and the density together. So we do that volume is equal to what? Mass all over what? Density. So we need to find the what 15 tons is in what? Cubic meter. And in order to do that, we need to what? First find what 1 ton in what? Cubic meter is. So we're going to be using this formula. Volume is equal to what? Mass all over what? Density. So we know that 1 ton in kg is what? 1,000 kg. So we'll now say the mass will be what? 1,000 kg, or you can leave this in tons if you choose to, divided by what? What is the density of what? Sand is what? 1,600. So since we've gotten the mass and we've gotten the density, if we divide these two together, it will give us what? The volume of what? 1 ton. What 1 ton is equal to in what? Meter cube. So 1 ton will now be equal to what? 0.625 meter cube. So since 1 ton is equal to 0.625 meter cube, we can now use this information to know what 15 tons is in what? Cubic meter. So since we know that 1 ton is 0.625 meter cube, then we can now say, therefore, the volume for 15 tons will now become what? If 1 ton is equal to what? 0.625 meter cube, then 15 tons will now be equal to what? X. So when you cross multiply, it's going to give me what? X will now become what? 15 multiplied by what? 0.625, and that will be what? 9.378. So the approximate value of 15 tons to cubic meter is what? 9.378. So we're going to be needing this what? Value. So to find the cost of sand per meter cube, therefore cost of sand per meter cube, we'll now be using a formula by dividing the cost for 15 tons divided by what? the approximate volume of 15 tons in what meter cube. So when I say cost for 15 tons divided by what volume in what meter cube of 15 tons. So the cost for 15 tons of sand is what? 112,500. So divided by what? 9.378, and that will give us what? 12,000 naira. So 12,000 naira is the cost per meter cube of what? Sand. So in our mixed ratio, this ratio for sand is what? 2. You know why isn't 1:2:4? So the mixed ratio is 2, meaning that we have to find what we are going to be looking for is what? 2 meter cube. So we now need to know what the cost for 2 meter cube will be. So we can now say cost for 2 meter cube will now become what? 2 multiplied by what? 12,000 naira. And that will give me what? 24,000 naira. For 2 meter cube. So after doing this, we will now add what? 5% waste. So 5% waste of what? 24,000 naira will now give me what? 1,200 naira. So when we find the total of these two, when we add them together, we're going to be having what? 25,200 naira. Cost for what? 2 meter cube of what? Sand. Doing this, we have done for the sand. We are moving to the next material, which is what? Aggregate. So the next material is aggregate, and our mix ratio says that we want to use 4 meter cube of aggregate in order to what? Make the grade of that particular concrete. So we know that we are to order what? 15 tons of what? Aggregate at the price of what? 250,500. So when I say aggregate 15 tons at what? 250,500. Then we can now say what will now be the cost of aggregates per meter cube. So doing the same step we took in order to convert the cost for 15 tons to cost per meter cube, you will still use the same step we did for the sand. So we can now use the same formula. The cost for 15 tons divided by what? The volume. So we are using the same volume because the density of the aggregate and sand are almost the same thing, approximately 1,600 kilogram per meter cube. So we can now say the cost for 15 tons of aggregates is what? 250,500 divided by what? The density divided by the volume of 15 tons in cubic meter, which is 9.375, and that will give us what? 26,720 per meter cube. But our mix ratio says that we are to what? Allow for what? 4 meter cube. So we now need to now determine what the cost for 4 meter cube will be. So the cost for 4 meter cube will now become what? 4 multiplied by what? The cost per meter cube of aggregate, which is 26,720. So when we add everything together, we're going to be having what? 106,880 naira. 106,880 naira. So we're not going to be what? Adding 5% stockpile or waste. So 5% of 106,880 is going to become what? 5,344. So when we add these two parameters together, we're going to be having what? 112,224. This is the cost for what? 4 meter cube. After doing this, we will now do a summary for the what? Materials. Mind you, we are not looking for the cost per meter cube for cement, sand, and aggregate. We are looking for the cost per meter cube for what? Concrete. So we now have to do the summary for what? The materials. So for the material summary, we need to add all the amounts we've built up for each of the materials in relation to their what? Mix ratio. So we need to find what we have built up for cement, sand, aggregate, and what? Add everything together to give us what it will cost us to make that particular grade of what? Concrete. So the first material is what? Cement. So cement, we built it up to be what? 243,432 naira. Per what? Meter cube, because the cement has a ratio of what? 1, and then number 2 is the what? Sand. And what did we build our sand to be? 25,200 for 2 meter cube. And then the last one is what? Aggregate. We built it up to be what? 12,224. That's the cost for what? 4 meter cube. So we need to add these 3 parameters together. When you add everything together, you are going to be having what? 380,857 naira for what? 7 meter cube of what? Concrete. So after doing this, we now have to what? Add 45% shrinkage. Shrinkage, less of bulk, and void. So 45% of this price is going to become what? 171,385.65. So we now have to add these 2 parameters together. So when you add these 2 parameters together, what are we going to be having? We're going to be having what? 552,242.64. Sorry. For what? 7 meter cube of what? Concrete. So mind you, we ought to be looking for, or the units we are building up our rate is what? The cost per meter cube. So what we've gotten here is the cost for what? 7 meter cube of concrete. So we need to now determine what will be the cost for what? 1 meter cube. So we can now say, if cost for 7 meter cube of concrete is equal to what? 552,242.65. So we can now say, therefore, the cost per meter cube is equal to what? You now divide this by what? 7. So it's 552,242.65 divided by what? 7 meter cube. And that will be equals to what? 78,891.81. So this is our rates for the what? Material. Next, we are now going to be what? Building up the rates for the what? Labor. Now, if you remember, in our bill of quantity extra, they say that the nature of this operation is using what? Hand mix, meaning we are not going to be building up any rates for what? Machineries or what? Plants. So this one is much more what? Direct. After building up your rates for what? Materials, you now go straight to your what? Labor. So for our labor, the two things we are going to be what? Putting in mind in terms of the activities they are going to be performing is number 1, mixing, and number 2, placing. So for our mixing, they said that we need what? 3 laborers mixing for what? 4.5 hours. And then for the placing, it's stated that we need 1 tradesman and what? 2 laborers placing for 3.5 hours each. So the first thing we're going to be building up rate is for what? The mixing. So for the laborers, they said that we have to pay them at the rate of what? 5,000 naira per day. So we need to now deduce what that 5,000 naira per day will be per hour. So say mixing at what? 5,000 naira daily wage. So now say the cost per hour when I become what? 5,000 naira divided by what? How many working hours do they work in a day? 8 hours. And that will be equals to what? 625 naira per hour. So since we know the cost for our laborers per hour, we can now say, since we are needing 3 laborers and each laborers have to work for what? 3.5 hours, we can now find what the total amount we have to pay 3 laborers to work for 3.5 hours would be. So you can now say 3 laborers mixing for 4.5 hours. So 3 laborers mixing for 4.5 hours per meter cube each at the rate of what? 625 naira per what? Hour. When I become what? 3 times what? 3 times what? 625 naira multiplied by what? 4.5 hours. And that is going to give me what? 8,437.5 naira. So the next thing we're not going to what? Book for is the what? Build up for the placing. So if you look at this this thing carefully, for the placing, we have 1 tradesman at a rate of 6,000 naira per day, and we have what? 2 laborers at 5,000 naira per day. So because their rates are different, we have to be treating them individually. So for the tradesman, which we are paying 6,000 naira per day, we need to know how much we have to pay him per hour. And then for the laborers, which we are paying 5,000 naira per day, we need to know how much we have to pay them per hour. So for the what tradesman, which we are paying at 6,000 naira per day, so first we need to know what's the cost per hour, which is what 6,000 divided by what 8 working hours, which should now be equals to what 750 naira per hour. So we'll now do the same thing for the what laborers. So we can now say the cost per hour for the laborers will now become what 5,000 naira divided by what 8 working hours, and that will give me what 625 naira per hour. So after finding the cost per hour for the laborer, that's for one laborer to what place the concrete, we were told that we'll be using what 2 laborers. So we now need to know how much it will cost 2 laborers to what place the concrete per hour. So we'll now say cost for what 2 laborers will now become what 2 multiplied by what 625 naira per hour, and that will give me what 1,250 naira. So it means that for 2 laborers, we are going to be paying them 1,250 naira every hour that they what place the concrete. So after doing this, now we now need to know how much we'll pay them for placing 1 meter cube of what concrete. And in our consideration or the information given when we started the video, they said that the tradesmen and the what 2 laborers, they are going to be what placing the concrete, that's 1 meter cube of the concrete, for what 3.5 hours. So what we can now do to get how much we have to be paying our laborers for placing, we can now add the costs with what built up per hour for one tradesman we are using and what the 2 laborers we are using. We can add them together. When we now add them together, we will now multiply it by what the 3.5 hours the both of them are to what use to what place the concrete. So we can now say 3 cost for placing we built up the price, the cost per hour for our tradesman as what 750 naira per hour. So we're not going to be adding it with the cost for the 2 laborers per hour, and which we've what built up as what 1,250 naira per hour. So when you add everything together, we're going to be having what 2,000 naira per hour. So 2,000 naira per hour is the what cost for labor for placing the what concrete. So we now need to know what will now be the cost for the labor for placing the concrete per meter cube. So can now say for cost for placing 1 meter cube at what 3.5 hours per meter cube will now become what 2,000 multiplied by what 3.5. 3.5 hours, and that will be equals to what 7,000 naira per meter cube. So per meter cube of concrete that the laborers place, we are going to be paying them what 7,000 naira, which consists of what both the what 2 laborers and the what 1 tradesman. So the next thing we're going to be doing is to what? Make the word summary for the word label. So the first activity they did is for the word mixing. And we built up our rate per meter cube for mixing as what? 8,437.5. And the next one is what? Placing. And we built up the rate as what? 7,000 naira per meter cube. So when you add the two parameters together, we're going to be having what? 15,437.5 naira. So the total summary now, which would include that of the material and the label. So since we've gotten the total cost for our label per meter cube, we now need to do the combination of what? Our material and our what? Label. So for the material, what did we build up our rate per meter cube of concrete? 78,891.81. And for our label, 15,437.5. So when you add the two of them together, we're going to be having what? 94,329.31. This is the cost per meter cube of what? Concrete. So after doing this, we will now add our what? 25% profit and what? Overhead, if we are using the contract price. So we'll now say add 25% profits and overhead. So 25% of this price is equal to what? 23,582.33. So when you add the two of them together, our rate will now become what? 117,911.69 naira per what? Meter cube. So this is what will be taken to our what? Bill of quantity, and be multiplying it by our what? Quantity that we've measured for. So doing this, you built up the rates for concrete work using only what? Hand mix, that's using manual labor. So guys, we've come to the end of today's video. I hope you derived adequate knowledge from it. Please, if you did, do not forget to like, share and subscribe to this channel if you derived adequate knowledge from this video. Thank you, and we'll see you in the next video.